So now we'll look at changing the settings on two different compact cameras. Now there are so many compact cameras on the market that it's going to be difficult for me to show you how to change it for all the different makes. But I'll show you a Canon and a Panasonic camera, and you'll see that even though these are two different makes, the settings are very similar. So we're going to start off in the camera's fully automatic mode. And to change the settings on this camera, we press the function set button here in the middle of this controller dial. Now you'll find that the function set button, or the equivalent of it, is in approximately the same place between the rear controller of most compact cameras. And the terminology is very similar as well. So by pressing this in the fully automatic mode, there's only really one thing I can change, and that's the quality of the JPEG files. So at the moment we're on a coarse setting, so I've gone to fine. I can move down and change the size of the JPEG file. So in fully automatic mode, that's really all I can do, so not very flexible. If I switch this to what Canon called the manual mode, which is in actual fact really a program mode, then press the function set button again. Now all the settings on the left hand side are enabled, so we've got a lot more flexibility. So I would recommend that you use the manual mode or program mode on your compact camera. Now the first interesting option we have is the exposure compensation. Again, we can make this brighter or darker. And the good thing about a compact camera is that as we do change the exposure compensation, we actually see the photograph getting brighter and darker. Some compact cameras will also give you a live histogram, so we can see the histogram change as you change the exposure. The next setting is the white balance. So very similar to the other cameras we've looked at so far. We have automatic, daylight, cloudy, tungsten, etc. And as we change these settings, you'll see that the colours are changing as well. So in the studio we actually have tungsten lights, and you'll see that we now have the correct colour for the background. In cloudy it's far too yellow, and same in daylight. Now the next important setting is the light meter, and again, as with the SLRs, I strongly recommend you use the evaluative mode, not the average or the spot meter mode, so just leave it in evaluative. I'm going to leave the function set now. Now around the function set button we have other more commonly used settings that we can change. We have ISO, so we have high ISO, and we have low, 80, 100, etc. Compact cameras have a very small sensor and they are very sensitive to noise, so try and keep the ISO to as low a value as possible. I strongly recommend not using the automatic setting in a compact camera, because when it gets dark it's going to give you a very high ISO and a very noisy photograph, so try and avoid that if you can. To the right of that we have flash, and then the options are to have the red eye switched on. We have, when the flash is on, that means the flash will fire for every photograph. And we'll talk about why we want to do that when we go outside. We have flash off, so that forces the flash off. So if you're in a gallery or a building where you're not allowed to use flash, then that's how you turn it off. Also use flash off when you're doing a landscape photograph and you've got the camera supported on a tripod, because the flash really isn't going to light up your landscape and it's just going to give you a fast exposure when really you wanted a slow exposure. Then we go back to automatic, the default. The slow synchro setting is used for nighttime photography when you want to light up both a group of people and you want to have a long exposure for the background. Then we have the drive mode at the bottom. So we have continuous, where you hold the button down, it will take a series of pictures. We have a self timer setting and single shot. So single shot again is the default. And then on the left hand side we have focus settings. So macro will allow you to focus very closely. Compact cameras have a huge advantage in that they can actually focus to within about 5 centimeters of the subject. So you can get much closer with a compact camera than you can do with an SLR. Infinity will force the camera to focus at infinity, so that's used for landscapes usually where your subject matter is a long way away from the camera. And then when you don't see the flower or the mountain symbol, that means that we're back to automatic focus. So that's a quick run through of changing the settings on this Canon compact camera. Now I'm going to look at a new Panasonic compact camera. Although this is a very different make than the Canon we've just looked at, the layout is actually very similar. So to change settings again, we have a menu set button, as it's called in this camera, right here in the middle. And then we can go to the record mode, and we have many of the same settings that we had before. So we have the number of pixels we want to take, the quality, ISO settings, white balance, autofocus modes. So these are all straightforward. Like white balance, we can press automatic white balance, and it shows us an example of our scene, and it will change colour as we change white balance. So remember, with white balance you want to get the same colours that you're seeing with your eyes on the back of the camera. Hopefully automatic white balance will achieve that for you, but in this case automatic white balance is giving us a slightly yellow picture, and if we go down to tungsten, or in this case it's called incandescent, then it's actually the sheet in the back is more or less the right colour now. If we go back to the main shooting menu now, then to do exposure compensation there's a plus minus button that we can press, and again, as it's a compact camera, we can actually see the change in brightness as we change the exposure compensation on the back. Then I'm half pressing the shutter button to go back to the main menu. We have a flash menu, just as we had before, automatic, automatic with red eye, force the flash on, the slow sync for nighttime photographs in a well-lit environment, and then force the flash off. We have the macro focus mode, which is the flower symbol, so the same symbol as the Canon, and then we have the self-timer mode. So although it's a different make, then all these camera settings are very similar from one make to another. It's just a matter of working out how to find them on your camera. So although this Panasonic is obviously a very different camera to the Canon, the terminology is the same, and the button layout is almost the same as the Canon compact camera as well. So once you've learnt what white balance is, exposure compensation, etc., it's just a case of finding the right button on the back of your camera.